Alright, time to continue with the second entry in the mother's diary. These are surely gonna be interesting. During the family council, she buried herself on the Oreo-san's futon again. Oreo-san dotes on her unwaveringly. No matter whatever insolence my child commits, she doesn't mind. It's almost as though my child is a kitten or something. Yeah? Huh. Oreo dotes on her exactly like you would with a kid. As her mother, I chided her for doing that. Until the Oreo-san had said 3 times that it was fine, I chided her as a formality. Of course, she never lends an ear to any of my chidings. Knowing that Oreo-san's standing was a far above mine, she behaves like that. I don't like the cunning that's unbefitting of her age either. Yeah, almost as if she knows that her mother cannot do shit as long as she's around Oreo. For someone who seems to be in power like Oreo, there is a certain level of sweetness in her as well. Because you can kinda assume that someone like Oreo will probably be like a big asshat, like dictator, which she might still be, I don't know. But there is a level of softness in her as well. In any case, not only Oreo-san, but the rest of the old folk in the village spoil her too much. One day, I was surprised. By chance, on the way back from some shopping, I saw her by herself just outside a candy shop. My own child suddenly grabbed a snack, opened the package right there, and started eating it. She didn't make any attempt to pay for it, and she didn't even think of looking around. It didn't even feel like she was shoplifting, more like she were brazenly eating snacks that was offered to her. When I began to admonish my child, the elderly shop owner appeared, uncovered for her. The owner gave the ridiculous excuse that he had said it was okay for that child to eat any of the snacks out by the entrance, so it was fine. When I tried to pay for the snacks that my child had eaten, the owner refused my money. During that exchange, more old folks had suddenly gathered around, and it began to feel like I was the one in the wrong. Jesus. The elderly people all put their hands together reverently in front of my child and repeatedly voiced their respects. I was born into the Furude's family, so it wasn't like I didn't know why she was being treated specially. When I was still young, it was something I heard often from my grandmother. If by chance the child that I gave birth to was a girl, that child would be the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. All the other folk believe she's the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, and spoil her rotten. The thing is though, she herself, like the mother, is also like a Furude. You would think that someone like Rika's mother would be treated with respect in similar fashion to Rika, because you don't know, maybe the mother was always Oyashiro. It doesn't sound like the mother is getting like any special treatment in comparison to Rika. And not only did they spoil her, but they even told her she was the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama, that she had a divine power, and threw all sorts of strange folk tales her way. Okay, you know what? Here's the thing, folks, about this whole Oyashiro and especially what happened in the last discussion that we had with Rika. With all the times that it was mentioned that she was talking as if she was predicting the future, like she knew that the dam protest would stop, like the dam construction would stop, and all the deaths that she mentioned off the list. Again, going back to Yumineko right over here, I don't want to throw in the option yet that we're going meta right here. So I am gonna go, however, with a more mystical or a more science fictional kind of explanation. Maybe we're going with a many worlds interpretation right over here, and Rika would have some kind of power to look into other timelines. Maybe she can transport herself from one timeline to the other. Okay. I know I shouldn't really make like connections to Yumineko as of right now. But I really want to talk about Ben Castel, however. So, here's the thing. Ben Castel, Inimineko, as well as Lambda Delta and the other witches as well, they have been tortured for many, many years. Almost as if they went through some sort of cycle, like over and over and over again, that would never stop. And because of that, they became who they were. What if this is the cycle? Rika is aware of everything that is happening right over here, of the other timelines. And she is forced to relive these moments differently. It's not as if she goes back in time and she relives the same kind of day like over and over again, like Groundhog Day or something like that, but rather she goes from one timeline to the other. Like every timeline is different, but it will all end in the same kind of suffering. So no matter what, it will all end the same, and she's gonna end up suffering for like forever. And that would be surely quite something. Like that would be one reason why Rika would know about these deaths that happen. Whether it's in a mystical way or a meta narrative way or a science fictional way, maybe there's some force out there that is managing to do this for Rika, and God knows, maybe the other girls are going through something like this too. I don't know. So she may have begun to believe herself that she was a special existence. I went around and told everybody that it wasn't good for her upbringing, so to stop her all these strange things. But there was no uprooting the elderly people's deep-seated superstitions. I told my child not to listen to them, but it ended up being that she stopped listening to me. Between all the folks in the village who would dot on her, and myself who only scolded her, there was no wonder who she would listen to. There was no mistaking that the reason she had become strange was because of the elderly villagers. There was no doubt that they had shoved her full of strange folktales and superstitions since she was young. If it wasn't for that, there was no doubt my child would have been cute and normal. And I'm saying that I'm gonna leave it for the answer arcs because, like, you would think that maybe I would leave it for the investigation video, but I don't think I'm gonna be doing like an investigation video for chapter 4, to be quite honest. I kinda wanna progress, and to be quite honest, besides Rika, for right now, there isn't much that I'm adding to the previous theories that I haven't already. Like, this chapter was fun, but I think I'm gonna talk about the chapter itself, like, in the all-cast review. I can at least talk about that in the all-cast review. One sunny parent-teacher day, there was a cooking class, and my child was making curry rice with a practiced hand. Curry. While the other children her age were awkwardly using their kitchen knives, that child was wielding hers deftly. The teacher approached me with a smile on her face, saying it must be a result of learning it at home. I managed to play it off with a vague smile and nod in response. That was because I had never once taught my child how to make curry rice. Even then, she was peeling vegetables with practiced hand, adding them into the pot in the order of which took longer to cook. For a normal parent, they might unintentionally clap their hands together, happy at their child's actions. But in my case, it was different. There was no mistaking that somebody had taught her how to make that curry rice when I wasn't taking care of her. Thinking that, I quietly fell into an unpleasant mood. That or she knows about the other timelines and she knows about the future and she's reliving the same kind of timeline over and over again. Does she knows how to make her... No, okay, you know what, fine. Okay, you know what, let's just throw that option out of the way. Maybe we can think of a possibility that there is this secret mastermind serial killer, like a human serial killer who is very, very good at murdering people to a T, the way Rika described. Maybe it is somebody that Rika knows. That at some point, this serial killer had met Rika at a young age, and they have been quote-unquote friends ever since. And thus the secret serial killer has told Rika like everything. And that includes the serial killer teaching Rika how to make curry rice. I don't know. There's also that. In that sense, could it be Tomitake? Because Tomitake was mentioned in this chapter. You know, he has been visiting Hinamizawa for quite a while. That end, you know, there will be credence to the idea that maybe Tomitake faked his death. I don't know how, and I refuse to believe that, because that would mean that I would have to not believe the police, because they gave the autopsy, they investigated his corpse, as far as I'm aware, so he should be dead, according to the police. Unless he faked his death or something. Okay. When asked, it seemed she could also sew and do the laundry. I had never taught her how to do those things. And again, never saw her do it around the house. Be it cooking or sewing or the laundry. Again, that was probably because the elderly villagers taught her all sorts of rubbish when I wasn't looking. Not only that, they probably taught her all sorts of strange superstitions, trying to prop her up as the living incarnation of Ayashiro-sama. I said as much to my husband, suggesting that we should keep our child away from the elderly folk. But my husband, who was in a position of being the head priest of the Furude shrine, had little power against the elderly who supported it. Really? The head priest himself of the Furude shrine, he doesn't have control over the elderly like either. He took the rather uncommitted stance of saying that as long as she was being doted upon, wasn't it fine? I argued against that. That she was our child, and should be a completely normal girl. That what the elderly were expecting, that she was the living incarnation of Ayashiro-sama, was simply odd. The elderly villagers believe that child has divine powers. We would discuss the weather for the following day, but there were many times when I left the house without an umbrella and came back soaking wet. Rather than having clairvoyance, that was just second-hand knowledge from her watching the news all the time. The things that she knew that she shouldn't have known were just a result of the people who were trying to indoctrinate her and the people who were gossiping, getting together in the village. Okay, now we're getting into predicting the weather though, so... Okay, we were talking about that, then yeah, the serial killer would not have that kind of knowledge to tell Rika, hey, tomorrow is gonna rain like 100%, so you should be careful. Which, again, makes me think that Rika is that kind of person. She is built different. However, there certainly were days when everybody thought it was going to be sunny all day, and that child would stubbornly not go out without an umbrella. It would occasionally rain, and in the end, we would be saved. There were also been times where Rika knew of major accidents in foreign countries faster than the news did. Okay, you know what? Okay. I thought that she must have heard it break over the radio or something. And I think she shouldn't have. Something like that was in front of me right now, wasn't it? That child was making curry rice when there shouldn't have been anybody who taught her how to. No. That couldn't possibly be the case. somebody had taught her, indoctrinated her. When I wasn't taking care of her, somebody had indoctrinated Rika with something. I would say the same thing, but predicting the weather and major incidents like over the radio, that's something that even the serial killer would not be able to predict. Unless the serial killer has like superpowers or divine powers or whatever.
フルデさんのカレーは大変見事です。先生、花丸をあげちゃいます。ニパー。フルデさんはお料理を誰に習いましたか？やっぱりお家で？はい、お家なのですよ。
The other parents in attendance were impressed. Lies. Like all lies. I didn't teach her anything. Who was it? Who was it? Who was the person who had completely indoctrinated my child? She was my normal average daughter, not the living incarnation of Oyashiro-sama. Oh my god. Like, discussing about Rika is a completely entirely different topic, like altogether.
それは誰もが忘れそうなほど地方の小さな村の出来事。悲劇は幕を閉じ、その傷跡も消え去ろうとしていたある日、青年はかつて出会った少女に思いを馳せる。あの日聞けなかった言葉、あの日果たせなかった約束、その後悔と慟哭が閉じられたままだった運命を開く一つの光となった。暇つぶし。運命は幸せだけじゃない。でも不幸を望む人なんて誰もいない。
Alright. Going back to 1985. Akasaka meeting his good old friend Oishi. Now here's the thing, I can totally see like Akasaka talking about the events of Hinamizawa, and he's more than likely gonna realize that, hey, those things that mysterious girl said about the deaths that happened, they're actually gonna end up true. He's gonna find that out. Or he already did. And he wants to talk to Oishi about it. Let's see.
Papa! Papa ってば!
Is that Akasaka's child?
Oh.
Miyuki. Yeah, that definitely is. Must be something that Yukie, like the name came from Yukie more than likely. Or Akasaka, who knows? At this point in time should be... Wait, is the boy or girl?
大丈夫？怖い夢でも見たの？
Sounds like a girl. Like at this point, should be 7 years old. Miyuki was sitting next to me. I quickly patted her head after hearing her say that. I must have had a bad dream while sleeping in the cabin. I was sweating profusely.
いや、なんでもない。ちょっと暑かったかな。
I tried to wipe away the sweat while answering, and looked around for a handkerchief or towel. And then, a cold drop ran down my forehead. Miyuki turned to me and smiled, and then wiped my face with a towel she received at takeoff.
ありがとう、ユキ。
Oh, your voice is so adorable. Can I see her, please? Thanks, sir. I finally able to shake off my slumber. So I got up from the aisle seat. And looked out the window. I wrapped my arms around Miyuki in the window seat and listened to the noise as the land and sea blew past us before our eyes. And then the plane gently turned before entering the airport runway. Arriving at the lobby, I glanced around, looking for Oishi, and was met with a familiar gruff voice calling out to me.
Akasaka-san!
Hey!
何年ぶりでしょ
You seem as high-spirited as ever, Oishi.
う。ご無沙汰しておりますね。
大石さん、本当にお久しぶりです。
Oishi clapped his hand down on my shoulder, celebrating our union.
赤坂さんもだいぶいい顔つきになりましたね。最前線の捜査官らしいいい顔つきですよ。
大石さんはだいぶスマートになりましたね。背筋も良くなったような。
And that belly of yours is just as magnificent as ever.
これも社交ダンスのおかげですか。
赤坂さんもね、若いうちからダンスはやっておいた方がいいですよ。そしたらきっとモテます。モテモテ。
I think he's fine. He already was quite a magnet when he attracted Yuki. Oishi had retired and moved to Sapporo, and of all things had started taking ballroom dancing lessons. He had apparently gotten really into it, and decided to spend the rest of his new life devoted to that hobby. He was aiming to get his instructor's qualifications before he hit 80, and live out his old age dandy. Okay, I do have to ask this. Did he actually retire? I honestly don't remember if that was ever mentioned before. Then again, we have... Maybe it was mentioned at the beginning of this chapter. I honestly don't remember. Because it does seem that way, that he retired.
そちらがひょっとして
Actually, yeah, I think it was mentioned in the earlier chapters that soon enough Oishi wants to retire. So, yeah, I guess so. It's a baby! Oh my god! It's a baby! Oh! Miyuki! Oh, Oishi suddenly turned his attention to Miyuki, who was standing idly next to me. He bent down on his knee to look her in the face. Aw man, but now I'm reminded. I guess this is the end of 1978. And I didn't get to see Satoko in baby form. I didn't get to see baby Satoko. And neither Rena, or Mion, or Keiichi, so I guess that's 2 out of 6. We did get to see baby Rika and baby Mion, so... I guess it's better than nothing. But now I get to see a baby Miyuki later here. Look at you. However, my daughter was frightened and hid behind my back.
こら、みゆき。ちゃんとご挨拶しなさい。
She was staring at Oishi with a dubious expression while tugging at the hem of my shirt. She's usually not this shy. I wonder what's wrong. Can she sense the many years of suffering that Oishi went through?
すみません。いつもはこうじゃないんですが。
いえいえ、いいんですよ。おじさん顔が怖いからな。よかったらお名前を聞いてもいいですか？
赤坂みゆき。7歳です。こんにちはです。
いいお返事です。さすがは赤坂さんの娘さんですよな。
Oishi gently stroked Miyuki's head and smiled as though she were his own grandchild. After finally seeing that, Miyuki smiled in relief. Shortly afterwards, Miyuki told me that she was just doing what I had told her to do. Be careful around strangers. Oishi overheard that and let out a hearty shaking his big belly while laughing and walking. I led myself into Oishi's car, and we headed out towards the hot spring end. You know, sometimes I wonder about you viewers who are watching these videos. Some of you are gonna leave some of this video like in the background to listen to me talk about this instead of watching, because yeah, it is your choice and all that. But I wonder if sometimes, if I were to decide to just read like completely entirely different text than what is on the screen, like, I wonder what your reactions are gonna be to this. Maybe I should try that at some point. I had originally like at some point I'm gonna derail myself into some completely different story that I'm just making up on the spot, and then you viewers are gonna be like, oh, wait, what the fuck? Wait, hold on, what is it talking about? And then just go look at the video and it's like, what the fuck is this guy doing? I had originally intended to crash at Oishi's place, but Oishi was quite obstinate that his home wasn't suitable for that, so I came to this. At the inn, we relaxed while soaking in the hot springs. Then ate a delicious feast until we were full. I'm thinking. Miyuki had a little of the Mongolian barbecue and was delighted with it. After our bellies were swollen, Miyuki grew sleepy and went off to bed. And Oishi and I reminisced about the time we had played mahjong together in Hinamizawa. It seemed that to celebrate our reunion, Oishi had looked for people who could play. But unable to find a suitable candidate, we had to give up on putting together a table. As we turned together, we excitedly recounted our exploits during the final manhunt.
結局、あの犯人の2人は捕まったんですか?
いいえ。
Ooh. Nice drip.
結局、山狩りでも見つけられませんでした。多分、村にかくまわれてから、海外か遠方でほとぼりを冷ましてるんじゃないかと思いますね。
大石さんは確か、犯人の銃の一丁を奪いましたよね。あれからは。
海外の軍用拳銃でした。関西系の暴力団組織が大量に密輸したうちの一丁でしょうな。戦場痕を調べましたが、他の事件とのつながりは何も出ませんでした。そっちでは？
私はあの後、しばらく現場を離れましたので、よくは知りません。結局、全部闇の中ってことで決着したようですがね。
Oishi smiled wryly as he sipped his chilled drink.
あの後は大変でしたね。
What?
今年で7年ですか。
ええ。先日、七回忌の法要がありました。岐阜とも最近は疎遠でして、準備でいろいろ苦労しました。
それは、お疲れ様でした。
Yes, then the hostess brought in the extra drinks that we had ordered before. While the bottles of beer clanked as she brought them in, we halted our conversation. What Oishi meant when he said it must have been tough. Thinking about that was still hard, but time had healed the wound. What? What are they talking about? Like, are they talking about the victims of Hinamizawa? Oh god, don't tell me that they're also talking about, like, whatever the fuck happened, like, at the end of chapter 3. Like, the complete destruction of Hinamizawa. It was the day after, when I phoned Oishi to apologize. When I did, Oishi almost immediately handed the phone to one of my colleagues, who happened to be there. Not only was I injured in the brawl with the suspects, but I disappeared to drink late into the night without leaving any sort of contact information. So I thought he'd definitely be mad. Okay, well, we're back over here. Ooh. However, all he said was that it was something he couldn't talk about over the phone, and that I should come to the station as soon as possible. At the time, I could only think that he must have been really pissed off. But when I arrived at the station, he said this.
君の奥さんが事故に遭ったらしい。
What? Having no idea what happened, I borrowed the phone to contact the hospital Yuki was staying at. After being given a runaround several times, I was finally able to talk to someone in charge. And after mincing words for quite some time, they told me.
赤坂幸恵様が事故でお亡くなりになりました。
Oh my god. The world became a blur as I sat there dumbfounded. God damn stupid red flags. Wait, what do you mean by accident? Did she give birth and then died afterwards? Yuki's death was unbelievably abrupt. Unbelievably sudden. I could have understood if there was some kind of problem during the birth. But Yuki's death wasn't anything like that. On the stairs on the way up to the roof, she just happened to slip and fall. And she just happened to fall in an unfortunate place at an unfortunate angle. And that was it. Wanting to blame Yuki's death on somebody, I began to think that it was an act of revenge by the Guardians. That they killed my wife and made it look like an accident. What I learned when I flew back to Tokyo, however, was much more cruel than that. More cruel than that? Yuki had a habit of going up to the roof to cool off in the evening. There was an elevator up to the 7th floor, but from there you had to take the stairs to get to the roof. Even late in her pregnancy, when the evening came, she would always head up there. Her father had always said for her not to push herself, but Yuki insisted that until she had no choice but to stay in bed, she should be allowed to as she wished. However, I had never once seen Yuki go up to the roof. I only heard that from her father and the nurses. That was because whenever I visited her, she would spend that time with me instead. I heard that the reason why Yuki went up to the roof from a nurse she had become friendly with. She had said that her husband was away on business a lot of the time, and that whenever he called, she was able to cheer him up and give him courage. But when he didn't call, she couldn't do that. Her husband might put on a shadow of bravado, but in reality he grew lonesome pathetically fast. She was probably just the same. Whenever he left for business, not clear when he'd be back, she felt very lonely. Whenever she cheered him up, she was actually cheering herself up as well. Are you telling me that she was suicidal? To that degree? No. Like, from all the talks we had with Yuki, she never seemed like that kind of person. Jesus Christ. Like, is that true? That's why whenever he went far away from for an important job, on the evenings he didn't call, at the very least, she felt that standing underneath the same sky, her feelings would reach him. In that moment, I remembered the words that girl had told me. That it was best that I go back to Tokyo right away. Otherwise there will be something I'd regret horribly. Like, what the fuck? Let me think about this for a second. if Rika has like these divine powers to see everything and predict everything, that must have been that she knew that Yuki. Like, I refuse to believe this, but if it is true, then Rika definitely saw this side of Yuki. Therefore, she must have known that unless Akasaka returns like quickly, Yuki would do something like that. But at the same time, as far as I can assume, Rika is the one who cut the phone. Like, I don't know, it kind of depends on when Yuki died, because if Yuki died like that same day when Akasaka wanted to make the phone call, that would mean that it is Rika's fault that Yuki committed suicide. Maybe if Akasaka managed to make that phone call that night, maybe that would have postponed it and that would have not made Yuki commit suicide. If it was before that, then Rika cutting the phone cord wouldn't have mattered as much. Should I think that this is some form of punishment? Like, hey, Rika warned Akasaka to go back to Tokyo. Initially, Akasaka did not heed that warning. Only after Akasaka rescued Toshiki Inukai, then he would go back to Tokyo. But by that point, it was too late in Rika's eyes. He did not heed Rika's warning, and because of that, he must be punished. Yes, that's it. Because I was away on business that day. Yuki headed up to the roof. Had I known that this would have been the result, had I done as the girl had said and dropped everything to head back to Tokyo, I might have been with Yuki on the day she died. If I was with her, she wouldn't have gone to the roof. The day my wife died was on the evening of the third day of my trip. Yes, it was right before the time I had the sudden urge to hear Yuki's voice, and ran around the village trying to find a phone. Right before. I guess it didn't really matter at that point in this case. Rika cutting the phone cord. Like, at that point, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, if Yuki died after that night, then it would have been Rika who did this. But if Yuki had died like before Akasaka wanted to make the phone call, then in that case, maybe the reason Rika wanted to cut the phone cord was because she wanted to have that kind of conversation with Akasaka. Because if Akasaka made that phone call instead of talking to Rika, then Akasaka would have learned about Yuki's death, and therefore Akasaka would have just gone right back to the hospital like real quick, and then just run back home like real quick. Before Rika would have the chance to talk to Akasaka about those deaths. Maybe that would be the reason why Rika decided to postpone Akasaka learning about Yuki's death so that she would have that conversation with him, and then afterwards Akasaka would learn about it. God, it's like all this time throughout this chapter, my mind has been tethering between the thought of Rika helping and Rika being a menace. It's like it tethers from one side of the balance to the other. Like, what is Rika thinking? The girl had gone around and cut all the phone cords. If she hadn't, and I had made that call, I would have not only learned of Yuki's death at that time and collapsed in tears. Of course, even though the cords were cut, it only put me off learning of Yuki's death by that one evening. Exactly. In the end, I had learned of it the next morning. However, when I managed to put my emotions in order, I realized it was that girl's small token of consideration.
そんな話は 初めて聞きました。
私も初めて話します。
偶然では。超能力じゃあるまいし。
大石さんは教えてくれましたよね。あの子は、お社様という神様の生まれ変わりではないかと言われてるって。
まあ、村の年寄りどもは、フルで理科に神通力があると信じてるようでしたがね。
神通力?
Oishi had originally said it as a kind of joke, but realizing that it was serious, he slumped his shoulders.
まあ、嘘か本当か知りませんがね。
You know, we've been talking about Oyashiro like quite a lot throughout these chapters. But, you know, now I am curious about these kinds of powers that Oyashiro would have in the first place. Again, talking about the possibility that, I don't know, maybe Oyashiro had that kind of power to see many timelines. Therefore, Rika would have that kind of power too.
未来のことを予言してみせたり、知らないはずのことを話してみせたり。千里眼だの、天の啓示だの。まあ、いろいろです。もちろん、具体的な実例は何一つありゃしないんですがね。
幸恵の事故を予言してみせました。
Oishi tried to laugh it off, but out of respect to my deceased wife, he kept it restrained.
現職の警視庁の敏腕捜査官が神通力やらたたりやらを信じるわけで。
You have no idea. In my case, I've seen a lot of stuff happen in my adventures. I've seen quite a lot of stuff that would be considered unimaginable to think of, which would include such divine powers and curses. Having him say that so bluntly, I couldn't respond. Of course, I had no intention of believing such odd things, but he could only say that because he didn't know what I did. Since I met that other girl, who both was and wasn't a Rika Furude, I couldn't deny the existence of any otherworldly entity.
予知でなく予告の可能性ももちろん否定できません。
Not prescience, but a warning. If what that girl has said was a warning about Yuki's accident, then things became much easier to understand. Basically, the line of thinking became that it was a threat. Because I didn't go back to Tokyo, my wife was killed in a way that made it look like an accident.
奥さんの事故の検証に不備は？
もちろん、謀殺の可能性も疑いました。現場検証の書類は全て目を通しましたし、私が独自に調査もしました。
But then, like, what the fuck? Like, what about Miyuki? Like, it does sound as if Yuki gave birth to Miyuki, like, at that point. Unless Miyuki is not the biological daughter of Akasaka's. She is someone else's child and now we're taking care of her for some reason. But if Yuki gave birth to Miyuki like before her death, then... what would go through the mind of such a person that even after giving birth to the seed of love that is between Akasaka and Yuki, after giving birth to such a beautiful thing, to still tell yourself that you are lonely to the point of killing yourself, especially after giving birth? Unless... Now, I don't want to think that a miscarriage had happened. It's not like they're mentioning like any birth accidents that would push Yuki even further to suicide. I don't know. There weren't any witnesses to Yuki's fall. And it was a possibility that somebody had hit, waiting to push Yuki down the stairs. However, the cleaning ladies frequented the roof to hang laundry, and the security cameras on each floor hadn't recorded anything out of the ordinary. There wasn't anything set up the stairs, and I was unable to find anything suspicious.
結局、独自の検証の結果でも、幸恵が単独で事故を起こしたとしか考えられませんでした。まあ確かに。大臣の孫を誘拐して、脅迫してのけた連中です。妊婦一人を階段から突き落として、証拠を残さないなんて、できないことじゃないのかもしれない。
Oishi's expression completely sobered up.
奥さんは連中に殺された。
When Yuki had died, I thought that as well. More precisely, I wanted to blame somebody, so I created the most viable scapegoat. Without any clear evidence, that violent notion faded along with the wounds in my heart.
あの少女は、私に妻の死を予告し、脅迫したのか、それとも、妻の死を予言し、救う道を示したのか。そのどちらかなのだとしたら、私は後者ではないかと考えます。
Oishi smiled slightly in disbelief as he poured more beer from his bottle.
じゃあいいですよ。赤坂さんの言う通り、古出理香は未来がわかる預言者だとします。なら、なぜあの大災害が予知できなかったんです？
That disaster?
あんな恐ろしいガス災害が起こると知ってて、どうして黙っていたんです？ほんの数時間前でもいい。もし村に知らされていたら、ほとんどの人は死なずに済んだかもしれないじゃないですか。
The Great Hinamizawa Disaster Memoriam List. Well, it seemed that has happened again. It was near the end of June 1983. Volcanic gases from the Onigafuchi swamp erupted and hit the village in the middle of the night. It was an unprecedented disaster where the whole populace was wiped out. It caused a wave of panic about volcanic gas across the country, causing people to overact over any reports of odd smells. I hadn't heard of the blockade of the Hinamizawa area being lifted, so it should still be cordoned off.
それは、
It was my turn to be lost for a response.
まあでも、お社様の生まれ変わりである古出理香が殺されたので、村がお社様の怒りに触れて、それで沼から瘴気が湧き出して村を死滅させたんじゃないかって。
That is one way of looking at it, yes.
そういう話が確かにHinamizawa系の生存した人間たちの間でまことしやかにささやかれてたのは事実ですね。
大石さん、失礼。今、殺されたとおっしゃいましたか？
Again.
ああ、まあ、赤坂さんになら話しても問題ないか。
When I saw the news about the gas disaster, I remembered that girl. I then found her name in the list of victims. That's why, at the time, I thought her own death she had predicted was due to the gas. It was after that I learned from the tablets of the series of mysterious deaths in Hinamizawa during the 5 years leading up to the disaster that became known as the Curse of Yashiro-sama. And that string of mysterious deaths lined up exactly with what the girl had predicted. So I had always thought to ask Oishi about it, as he had been involved in the investigation. That's right, that was the reason for our reunion. But right now, Oishi had said, Urigafurode didn't die in the disaster, but was killed?
最後の年のたたりについて聞かせてもらってもいいですか？
私、 退職したとはいえ、守秘義務がありますよ。
Why?
中井さん、すみません。お冷やで、ちょっとグレードの高い地酒はありませんか？
I mean, might as well.
種類はお任せします。
いやいや、そういうつもりで言ったんじゃないんだけどな。
Oishi laughed loudly, not wholly unsatisfied, and stopped the hostess to tell her that the cheap booze was fine. If we're gonna drag the information out of you, we're gonna make you drunk for it.
私も週刊誌で報道されている通りのところまでは知っています。でも、大災害の年のたたりは全く知りません。
Yeah, I mean, can you describe us like 1983 specifically? Because it always happens differently. What happened in this timeline?
例の大災害のせいで、Hinamizawa地区全域が封鎖されちゃいましたからね。最後の年のたたりについては、ほとんど捜査ができてないんですよ。何年か後に封鎖が解けたとしても、村人のほとんどが死んでますし、数少ない生存者も親戚の元なんかに散って、所在がほとんどわからないですからね。
Like, I wonder if this is a completely different timeline and different things happened this time to the point of Rika's death and the disaster happening, or is this exactly the same kind of future as in the third chapter? In which case, it kind of depends. Is Sakutoko considered MIA?
完全に迷宮入りです。
Oishi seemed to postulate to himself as he stared at the ceiling, as if trying to work out a memory from the rusty cogs in his head. And then, he said in a completely sober voice,
週刊誌なんかじゃ、5年目のたたりが大災害だ、みたいな言い方をしてますけどね。本当の5年目のたたりは、ちゃんと綿流しの祭りの当日にあったんですよ。富武二郎っていう旅行写真家がいましてね。彼が犠牲に。
Mm-hmm. Oishi gestured about how the victim tore out his own throat with the fingernails as he talked.
で、その富武氏の恋仲の女性が、岐阜の山中で焼死体に。
Okay.
岐阜県警さんがあんまり協力的じゃなかったもんで、こっちはあまりよく状況を知らないんですがね。
一夜にして犠牲者が2人も。
実はね、2人どころじゃ済まないんですよ。その翌日になんですがね。
Yeah?
私の後輩の熊谷君が、捜査中に車両ごと蒸発しましてね。
Kumagai. Okay, so, yeah, I guess so. It is a different timeline. Different events are happening in this. And yet again, Tomitake dies in the same way, and Miyotakano dies in the same way. Another constant. Kumagai was a younger detective that was going to be partnered with Oishi after they first met. Yeah, I remember him.
富武氏の事件捜査のために村に聞き込みなんかに回ってたんですよ。何かの事件に巻き込まれたのかもしれない。私と一緒だったなら無事だったかもしれないと思うと、今でも悔しいですよ。あの日、どういうわけか私、お腹をひどく壊しましてね。外回りは遠慮しちゃってたんですよ。
事件の真相に近づきすぎて、消された
と思ってます。熊ちゃんは善と有望な若者だったけど、まだ現場経験が不足してた。トラブル慣れしてなかったんです。
Oishi lamented the fact that he wasn't with his subordinate that day.
で、さらに翌日ですね。なあ、彼のことは赤坂さんもご存知ですよね。
Hmm?
ほら、入江先生ですよ。
Hmm.
覚えてます？
Yeah.
ああ、病院の若い先生ですね。ぼんやりと覚えてます。
彼ですね。どういうわけか睡眠薬で自殺しまして。 遺書の類はなし。司法解剖の結果でも睡眠薬によるものと断定されました。動機以外に不審な点はなし。
睡眠薬での死に見せかけるのはそんなに難しくないんじゃないですか。他殺の可能性は？
独身で離婚歴もなし。特定の女性と付き合っていたという話もなし。少年野球チームの監督を務め、村人との親交もあり、誰からも好かれる人物。敵が見当たりませんね。まあそれを調べるにも、もうあの大災害でめちゃくちゃになっちゃいましたからね。
I mean, Idiot does seem the type of person who would have like no enemies. He does seem like a sweet guy.
今となっては彼の身辺を調べようもありませんが。
それでフルで理科の死は？
その当日です。昼頃に神社に訪れた村の老人たちがフルで理科の死体を発見しました。
他殺？
ああ、話す前にそのイカそうめん食べちゃっといた方がいいですよ。
Is it the same kind of death as in Chapter 3?
無体な死に方？
It must be really bad. Oishi nodded firmly.
死体は神社の境内、賽銭箱の脇でした。もっとも閉めたのは他の場所でしょうね。全裸で裸足。足の裏は汚れてませんでしたから。
愉快犯の犯行？
司法解剖の結果、性的暴行の痕跡は認められませんでした。分かったのは、薬物で昏睡させられてからあの場所へ運ばれ、腹部を切開、回復、意図的に臓器を引きずり出して四方に散らしてみせました。
昏睡？では回復は死後ではなく？なんてむごい。
The girl's prediction was right on the mark. I'm pretty sure she was more detailed about the other deaths that led up to her own. For example, I think she said that the hospital was that beaten to death on the 4th year had her head split open. Then in that case, did she know that her own death would be so terrible? There must have been some moments where she wanted to doubt the validity of her own predictions. But as people died exactly as I prophesied, as the years passed, that prophecy would only come closer to fruition. And then, facing the final year, unable to struggle against her own destiny, her all too young life was snuffed out. And in such a cruel way. Knowing that her days were numbered, and unable to fight the tide of events heralding her end, my heart ached at her helplessness.
この死に方ですが、どうも単なる猟奇趣味ってわけじゃないみたいなんです。と言いますのはですね、Hinamizawaはかつて鬼が住んでたって話は以前もしましたよね。
Yeah.
そんな話も聞きましたっけ？
Hinamizawa村のお祭りの綿流しってのは、そもそも綿流し、つまり臓物流しから転じたものらしいんです。何でも人食い鬼たちが犠牲者をばらして内臓を川に捨てたというところから転じたらしいんですよ。
つまりHinamizawa村においては内臓を引きずり出すことに宗教的な意味があったと。
で、Hinamizawa村の昔話によるとですね。
I'm gonna be honest here, folks. I'm not sure if I ever threw this kind of idea before this thought that I had in the back of my mind. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, I don't remember, but might as well just say like right here. I did think of that. About the idea of how, like, parts of a body are thrown into the river to flow, like, into the distance. Like, who knows, maybe there is a possibility that somebody died, got dismembered, and they hid all the body parts inside a cotton that the people would just put in the river for it to flow away into the distance, all the way into the Onigafuchi swamp. That they would hide like organs inside a cotton, heart, liver, brain, intestines. I did think of that imagery.
人食い鬼と人間が仲良く暮らすための調停者として、親代様という神様が降臨しているってことになってるらしい。
確か、古出理香はその親代様の生まれ変わりだと言われてるんでしたね。
ええ。ですから、その荒人神である古出理香を回復して殺すのは、村の信仰に対するこれ以上ない冒涜行為と言えるわけです。
信仰への冒涜。それはつまり、親代様への冒涜ということですね。
あとは赤坂さんも知っての通りです。親代様のたたりが起こるのはその晩のことです。
Hinamizawa大災害。
The official explanation was that some swamp upstream erupted with toxic volcanic gas, which enveloped the village.
発生した沼は鬼ヶ淵沼と言いまして、hinamizawa村の旧名鬼ヶ淵村の名前の源となった沼です。